In the most feel-good story of the night, new statistics compiled from the FBI show an 11% increase in murders since last year in cities across the country. Wait, that's not a feel-good story at all. Cities like Chicago and Los Angeles saw approximately 24,000 violent crimes each last year. Violent crime also rose in Baltimore and St. Louis. Some argue that stop and frisk could prevent such increases, while others blame lax punishment for gun crime, as well as the Ferguson effect, which has led to a more restrained police force when dealing with such events. Here's this week's exchange between NBC's Lester Holt and Donald Trump during the presidential debate.
Stop and frisk was ruled unconstitutional in New York because it largely singled out black and Hispanic young men.
No, you're wrong. It went before a judge who was a very against police judge. It was taken away from her, and our mayor, our new mayor, refused to go forward with the case. They would have won an appeal. If you look at it throughout the country, there are many places where
the argument is that it's a form of racial profiling.
No, the argument is that we have to take the guns away from these people that have them and that are bad people that shouldn't have them.
And on top of all of this, the Secretary of Homeland Security spoke this week about his high concern about more terror attacks on U.S. soil by home-born violent extremists. He said it keeps him up at night, which is very comforting indeed. Our advice here, don't panic. Professor, I know you've written a lot on stop and frisk. I have a question, the theory actually, that our culture, our country has gotten complacent because crime has gone down so much that we then begin to question the very tools that cause the crime to go down. So we're saying maybe we should stop putting people in jails, maybe we should stop and frisk, and then the crime will then come back up. Does that make sense? Am I right or wrong?
Nobody knows what causes crime. There are so many factors, but you know, many civil libertarians who are blind to reality, I'm a civil libertarian but I'm not blind to reality, say we shouldn't have stop and frisk, and if you don't have stop and frisk it will have no impact on the crime problem. No. Constitutional rights are very expensive. Stop and frisk would reduce crime, but at a cost of constitutional protection and racial profiling. But you have to make a trade-off. In Boston, Massachusetts, they had stop and frisk in particular neighborhoods with the cooperation of some of the leaders, and they helped to disarm some of the gang members and did reduce crime. The Supreme Court has said you can have stop and frisk, but you can't racially profile.
You know, Tyrus, the stop and frisk they need like a crane.
You know, as a guy who's been stopped and frisked a few times and profiled at the airport and pulled over every time I drive by a school, which I'm not really what's up with that. But here's the thing about this. This just is going to create more problems for the police department, because they're already having a hard enough time dealing with actual criminals breaking the law, and when they do something wrong, they're being held to a higher standard. So now you have people, oh, I was profiled against. So I say, you know what, we've tried it, it didn't work, it hurt people's feelings. People felt, you know, if you're going to search me and I don't have nothing, you're going to search her and she has something, I'm not mad you searched me, but that's me. What they should do is we should have more cops, and at this point in those rough neighborhoods, let's bring the National Guard in. Let's start having military posts in our neighborhoods and stuff like that. Because if they see guys, just like I was at the airport today when I flew in, when I got my bags, there was two young brothers in uniform with M16 standing up, and I felt like the safest dude in the world. I'm going to get my bags and casually, I'm not doing nothing wrong, so I'm going to walk up out of here. So maybe at our parks and our schools, we'll just bring the National Guard in and let the military and the police department handle it, and maybe just the site will diffuse the violence.
What do you think, Colonel?
You know, I grew up in the inner city in Atlanta, Georgia, and just earlier this week I was in St. Louis, who has, you know, incredibly become one of the most violent cities. I think that we have to stop using this word profile, because in the military, when we were in the combat zones, it's called trend analysis. We didn't go chasing after leads that didn't take you, you know, toward the bad guys. I didn't go looking after, I mean, it's very simple. So we do that all the time. And I think that right now we have such an environment out there that are putting our police officers, law enforcement officers, you know, on their heels. And we're giving the advantage to criminal elements and to gangs. There are so many good people that are in these neighborhoods and communities. They want to feel safe. You know, the person that brought the lawsuit against the gun law in Chicago was an elderly black man. who wanted to be safe in his home. He just wanted a shotgun.
Yeah.
And so if we're not going to allow people to do that in many of these inner cities, then we need to have that cooperation with the police.
But you're right about one thing. Profiling is a good thing. That is, you want to get as much as you can about an individual.
Absolutely.
Find out where he traveled, find out who his associates are, look at his criminal record. You create a profile. That's just sensible. But to say that all black people should be stopped, that's racism.
But you have to, you know, I grew up, and like I said, never got stopped. Yeah. Because I didn't give anyone a reason
But look,
to stop.
a lot of policemen would look at you and say, you're probable cause. You
Are
are
you
probable
profiling,
cause.
Professor?
That's what a lot of policemen
I got
would
a
say.
college degree and
I understand that.
But to
they wouldn't say that about you.
to that point, the media is just as bad as the criminal element, because whenever something happens, they paint a picture of the person who's doing wrong as this innocent human being who was attacked horribly by the evil police department. And then, hold on, and then 2 weeks later, his wife reports him for being a felon, reports him for threatening her with a gun. And he has a rap sheet a mile long, but all we saw was selfies of him on his Facebook page holding a puppy and the evil police coming to get him, and that just creates, and no one waits for the next story.
Okay, but in New York, stop and frisk was being abused in New York. That's why it wasn't about it. What did Trump say? And against the police judge? No, they were using a way. They were stopping people because they looked nervous or they had their hands in their pockets. You can't do that. That is unconstitutional.
But they weren't stopping. They weren't stopping you and me because we look nervous.
I understand. Right. Thank God. I would never get anywhere. Yeah.
Well, cat's this big with a bandana on. She had a gun. She'd be dragged. You'd see her dragging.
I have to take a break, but I think there's a common link, because we didn't get to the terror part of this, between radical Islam and American violence. That political correctness is preventing us from doing the profiling that you need to deal with crime, and also preventing us from dealing with terror for fear of being called Islamophobic. It's the same disease, right?
Absolutely. And think about this.
Hey, I got some applause.
I would have never thought, having been in Iraq and Afghanistan, that we would have improvised explosive devices on the streets of New York or New Jersey. And it's here.
And worry that it could happen in the run-up to the election because Al-Qaeda and Russia both would like to influence the outcome of this election. I want everybody out there to make an oath. If there is a terrorist attack, God forbid, you will not change your vote. Because if you change your vote as a result of a terrorist attack, there'll be more terrorist attacks in the run-up to every single election.
I didn't look at it that way, and that's a great point to end the segment on, but that's very smart. I don't know if it's possible, though.
Let's just add more police and more military.
All right.